Have you ever wondered why so much of spiritual history seems hidden from us, as if someone deliberately chose what we could and couldn't know? What if the stories you've always believed about Jesus are only part of the truth, carefully shaped by centuries of tradition? Imagine for a moment that a deeper, hidden message has been waiting for you to discover. A message that could completely transform how you see not only Christ, but the very essence of masculine energy in the spiritual world. Could it be that the divine masculine, the creative and protective force within all of us, has been obscured for thousands of years, and that Jesus himself embodied secrets about this power that were never meant to be widely understood? Some scholars and Gnostic texts suggest that the teachings of Christ were far richer and more layered than what has survived in mainstream Christianity. Hidden in fragments, letters, and ancient codices, there are hints of a spiritual blueprint, a way to awaken forces within the soul that connect to courage, discernment, and balance, the essence of what the Gnostics would call the awakened inner man. For centuries, these teachings were either ignored, suppressed, or reinterpreted, leaving us with a partial vision of Jesus' true message. In this video, we will journey into the depths of those hidden truths. We will explore ancient writings, symbols, and Gnostic revelations that show how the divine masculine operates in ways that challenge conventional beliefs. By the end, you may find that your understanding of faith, inner strength, and spiritual purpose has been quietly shifted, and that a part of yourself, long overlooked, can finally awaken. You will see how what was once buried can now illuminate the path for anyone willing to seek it. If you're ready to uncover what has been deliberately hidden, to question the familiar, and to step into a deeper understanding of Christ and the divine masculine, stay with me. And before we dive into these revelations, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Join our community of seekers who are exploring the mysteries and truths that have been kept from the public for centuries. And make sure you don't miss what comes next. Do you feel that something about the story of Jesus has been left untold? Are you curious to see what the Gnostics discovered that the mainstream narratives ignored? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective is part of this awakening, and your questions may even reveal new insights to others. For centuries, the true nature of the divine masculine has been veiled, its teachings hidden beneath layers of interpretation, tradition, and institutional control. Many Gnostic scholars believe that from the very beginning, the early messages of Jesus contained insights about balancing spiritual energies within the human soul, lessons about courage, authority, protection, and discernment that are now largely absent from the narratives most people know. These weren't teachings about dominance or external power, but about the inner awakening of a masculine principle that complements the divine feminine, creating harmony within oneself and in the world. The problem, as the Gnostics saw it, was that this knowledge was never meant to be fully public. The early church, in its effort to standardize teachings, often simplified or omitted the complex messages embedded in Jesus' actions, parables, and relationships. Some texts hint that these secrets were carefully buried because they challenged the structures of authority and the prevailing spiritual hierarchy. They suggested that anyone who truly understood the balance of divine energies could think and act independently, potentially threatening systems that relied on obedience and unquestioned faith. Evidence of this intentional obscuring can be found in texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Mary, manuscripts discovered centuries after being hidden in places such as Nag Hammadi in Egypt. These writings reveal a vision of Jesus as more than a historical figure. They portray him as a guide to awakening inner knowledge, showing followers how to access spiritual strength through direct experience rather than blind adherence. Scholars note that, in these texts, Jesus often refers to the need to know oneself and to awaken the man within, phrases that suggest an understanding of masculine energy as a sacred, transformative force. Symbols play a critical role in this hidden message. The shepherd, the lion, the fisher of men each is more than a metaphor. They are coded references to qualities of the awakened masculine: protection, discernment, courage and the power to act wisely in the face of spiritual deception. By learning to recognize and embody these qualities, a person could step into a type of spiritual autonomy that the church may have viewed as dangerous or threatening. But who exactly obscured this knowledge? Historians and Gnostic commentators argue that it wasn't merely an accident of time or translation. Powerful institutions concerned with consolidating religious authority gradually reinterpreted or suppressed teachings that emphasized inner awakening, personal gnosis, and the interplay of divine energies. Over centuries, the emphasis shifted from personal empowerment to external rituals and moral codes, leaving only a shadow of the fuller, more radical teachings Jesus and the Gnostics promoted. Today, the effects of this suppression linger. Many seekers feel a void, an intuitive sense that there is more to spiritual life than has been presented. We follow familiar stories, but the deeper lessons about courage, authority, and balance within the soul remain hidden for most. As we continue this exploration, ask yourself, have you sensed this absence? Could it be that your own understanding of faith and masculinity is incomplete because the full teachings were never meant to be fully revealed? The evidence for the hidden teachings of the divine masculine lies scattered across texts that were long forgotten or deliberately concealed. In the mid-20th century, the discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt revealed manuscripts that had been buried in jars for nearly 1,700 years. Among these texts, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and fragments of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene stand out, offering glimpses into teachings that differ significantly from the canonical Gospels. These writings suggest that Jesus spoke not only of love and salvation, but also of awakening an inner power, a masculine principle of discernment, courage, and spiritual authority that works in harmony with the divine feminine within each soul. In the Gospel of Thomas, for example, Jesus repeatedly emphasizes knowledge of oneself as the path to understanding the kingdom of God. One saying reads, "When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father." Some scholars interpret this as a call to awaken the inner, masculine, the part of us that must confront fear, take responsibility, and act with clarity. Unlike the simplified moral directives of the canonical Gospels, these teachings focus on personal gnosis, or direct knowledge, suggesting that the path to spiritual maturity involves discovering and integrating inner forces that have been obscured by tradition. The Gospel of Philip contains references to the union of masculine and feminine principles as the key to spiritual wholeness. While mainstream interpretations often frame these concepts symbolically, the Gnostics saw them as real energies present in every person. They believed that awakening the masculine is not about external domination, but about activating courage, discernment, and creative power within the soul. In this sense, Jesus is presented not merely as a savior figure, but as a guide showing humanity how to access this latent force, how to embody strength, protection, and clarity while remaining aligned with love and wisdom. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene adds another layer, portraying Mary not just as a follower, but as someone who understood these hidden truths intimately. Some Gnostic scholars argue that Mary's closeness to Jesus represents access to the balanced union of divine feminine insight and awakened masculine energy. Her presence illustrates that spiritual power is not gendered in the physical sense, but arises from mastering and harmonizing the inner forces within. This is a radical departure from conventional narratives, where the masculine is often portrayed externally and hierarchically, rather than as an inner, conscious energy. Archaeological and historical context reinforces this. The early Christian movement was diverse, with various sects interpreting Jesus' teachings in different ways. Some groups focused on apocalyptic visions, others on ethical conduct, and the Gnostics on awakening hidden knowledge. Over time, as centralized authority grew, texts that emphasized personal empowerment and spiritual autonomy, especially those highlighting the inner masculine, were excluded or destroyed. What survived in popular tradition is only a fraction of what these texts reveal, leaving us with an incomplete understanding of Christ's message. As you reflect on this, consider, what would it mean for your own life to recognize and awaken the divine masculine within? Could courage, discernment, and inner authority be qualities you have overlooked because the teachings were hidden? The journey is not just historical. It is personal. These texts invite us to reclaim what has been buried, to awaken a force within ourselves that has always been waiting for recognition. Understanding the distortion of these teachings requires us to look at the consolidation of religious authority in the early centuries of Christianity. As the Church grew in power, it sought uniformity, defining orthodoxy and suppressing divergent voices that challenged its control. The Gnostics, with their emphasis on personal knowledge and awakening of inner forces, were seen as a threat because their teachings encouraged autonomy, critical thinking, and the cultivation of inner strength, the very qualities the emerging institution wanted to centralize under clerical authority. Some scholars believe that the canonization of texts and the destruction of others was not merely about doctrinal purity, but about controlling who could access spiritual power and in what form. These forces of suppression were not necessarily malicious in the modern sense, but they acted to preserve hierarchy and social order. Texts emphasizing the divine masculine, courage, discernment, and spiritual authority threatened to empower individuals to act from knowledge rather than obedience. Over time, the qualities of inner strength, initiative, and balance within the soul were overshadowed by ritual, obedience, and external moral codes. The more radical, Gnostic ideas, especially those describing the integration of masculine and feminine energies, were labeled heretical and excluded from mainstream teachings, leaving the public with a simplified, externalized vision of spirituality. We can see traces of this in historical accounts of Gnostic persecution, as well as in writings by early church fathers who criticized Gnostic groups for their secret teachings and emphasis on inner knowledge. The suppression was systematic. Texts were hidden, burned, or rewritten, and leaders who taught these principles were marginalized. The result was a narrowing of spiritual understanding, a selective transmission that removed powerful tools for personal awakening from the collective consciousness. Yet, the distortion was never complete. Fragments survived in hidden codices, private collections, and oral traditions. These fragments hint at a profound spiritual truth, that Jesus' teachings were not only about salvation through faith or obedience, but also about awakening the inner masculine, a principle that embodies courage, discernment, and creative action. When we read these texts today, we begin to see the outlines of a hidden blueprint, one that guides the seeker towards spiritual sovereignty and balance, in contrast to the passive reception of doctrine. Ask yourself, how much of your understanding of spiritual power has been shaped by what you were allowed to see, rather than by what actually exists? Could it be that the courage, clarity, and inner authority you sense as missing are qualities deliberately obscured from ordinary perception? Recognizing the forces that distorted these teachings is not just an academic exercise. It is the first step in reclaiming your own access to the divine energy that has been present all along. At the heart of these hidden teachings lies a revelation that has the power to transform the way we perceive both spirituality and ourselves. The divine masculine is not an external authority to obey, nor a rigid archetype to imitate. It is an inner force, a sacred energy present in every soul, waiting to be recognized, cultivated, and balanced with the divine feminine. The Gnostics understood that awakening this force allows an individual to act with discernment, courage, and wisdom, while remaining aligned with love and higher purpose. In other words, true spiritual strength is born from self-knowledge, not blind adherence. The turning point in the ancient texts is clear. Jesus is portrayed as a master of this inner energy, demonstrating that the path to spiritual awakening requires confronting fear, embracing responsibility, and exercising authority in alignment with higher truths. Some scholars believe that the repeated emphasis on knowing oneself in the Gospel of Thomas is not metaphorical. It is a call to awaken the inner masculine, to cultivate clarity and courage in the face of life's spiritual and moral challenges. This principle, once understood, reframes familiar stories. The miracles, the parables, and even the trials of Jesus become lessons on activating inner strength rather than simply narratives of faith. The divine masculine, as revealed in these Gnostic fragments, is also intimately connected with protection and action. It teaches us that discernment is as important as compassion, that the power to act must be guided by understanding, and that spiritual courage requires integration, not separation. By embracing this hidden truth, seekers are invited to take responsibility for their own spiritual journey, reclaiming agency that centuries of institutionalization sought to diminish. It is a radical idea that empowerment, rather than submission, is at the core of spiritual maturity. Consider for a moment the implications of this awakening in your own life. If the divine masculine is a force you can cultivate internally, how might your perspective on fear, decision-making, and purpose change? How would relationships, leadership, and even faith itself be transformed if this energy were balanced and alive within you? The text suggests that every individual has access to this power, but only those who seek, question, and reflect will find the keys long hidden in plain sight. Now, imagine stepping into the fullness of this revelation. The courage to face the unseen, the discernment to see beyond appearances, and the authority to act wisely are not privileges of a select few. They are gifts awaiting your recognition. As we move forward, ask yourself, are you willing to awaken these qualities within yourself, to reclaim what was always yours, but deliberately obscured? The next step brings us into the present, showing how these ancient insights affect your life today, and how the divine masculine can manifest in your actions, choices, and inner understanding. The hidden truths of the divine masculine are not just relics of the past. They are alive and relevant in your daily life. The same principles that Jesus and the Gnostics taught courage, discernment, inner authority, and creative action can guide your decisions, relationships, and spiritual growth. In modern terms, awakening this inner force means learning to act with clarity, facing challenges without fear, and understanding your purpose in ways that go beyond conventional rules or expectations. It is about integrating strength and wisdom, not dominating others, and allowing this energy to guide your choices with integrity and balance. Many people sense a gap in their spiritual or personal lives, a feeling that something essential is missing, a quiet dissatisfaction, or an inability to fully access their potential. The Gnostic texts suggest that this emptiness may reflect an underdeveloped inner masculine, a force of discernment, courage, and clarity that has been obscured by tradition, cultural expectations, or self-doubt. By consciously cultivating this energy, you can reclaim a sense of agency that allows you to navigate life with purpose and spiritual awareness. It is not about external power, but about mastery over yourself, over your fears, and over the illusions that cloud perception. Symbols from the ancient teachings can help guide this awakening. The lion represents courage and authority exercised wisely. The shepherd embodies protection and guidance without coercion. And the fisher of men reflects the power of insight and discernment, the ability to recognize truth hidden beneath appearances. When these principles are internalized, they manifest as confidence, decisiveness, and spiritual resilience qualities that shape not just your inner life, but how you influence the world around you. Even in our modern context, these teachings challenge prevailing notions of masculinity. Many cultural and religious systems equate masculinity with dominance or rigid external roles. Yet the Gnostic perspective reveals a subtler, transformative power, one that requires self-knowledge, emotional awareness, and alignment with the divine order. Awakening the inner masculine is about reclaiming a sacred potential, harmonizing it with the inner feminine, and stepping fully into the responsibilities and opportunities life presents. Ask yourself now, how might your perspective on strength, faith, and personal responsibility change if you recognize the divine masculine within? Could this energy guide you toward making choices with clarity and purpose? Reflect on these questions and consider sharing your thoughts in the comments. By engaging with these ideas, you are not just observing hidden truths, you are participating in a living awakening, reclaiming what was deliberately obscured, and contributing to a community of seekers who dare to uncover what has been hidden for centuries. As we reach the end of this journey into the hidden teachings of Jesus and the divine masculine, it becomes clear that what was once buried is now within your reach. The Gnostic texts, long hidden from public view, reveal that true spiritual strength is not about obedience or external authority, but about awakening the courage, discernment, and inner authority that reside within every soul. These teachings show that the masculine energy Jesus embodied was not about domination, but about mastering oneself, acting with clarity, and aligning action with wisdom and purpose. By recognizing this, you step into a deeper understanding of faith, one that transforms the way you see yourself and the world around you. The awakening of the divine masculine is not a distant or abstract concept. It is an invitation to live differently, to integrate courage with compassion, strength with discernment, and action with wisdom. The more you cultivate this inner energy, the more you will notice it guiding your decisions, shaping your relationships, and opening doors to opportunities that were previously invisible. These are not mere theories. They are practical keys for living with greater purpose, balance, and spiritual clarity. Every choice you make with awareness of this hidden principle reconnects you with a lineage of wisdom that has been obscured for centuries, allowing you to reclaim what was intentionally hidden. Now, I invite you to take part in this awakening. Comment below with your own reflection or a short prayer acknowledging your intention to awaken the divine masculine within yourself. By doing so, you are not just sharing your thoughts, you are actively participating in keeping these hidden truths alive, joining a community of seekers who are rediscovering knowledge deliberately concealed from the world. Your engagement is a way of honoring the ancient wisdom and ensuring it continues to illuminate the path for others who are searching for clarity, courage, and purpose. Do not let these revelations end with this video. Consider what it means to live fully aware of the energies within you, to balance them, and to act with both discernment and courage every day. How will you apply this understanding to your own life? Which parts of your inner strength have been dormant, waiting to awaken? These are the questions that do not have final answers. They are invitations to ongoing discovery, reflection, and growth. If this exploration has sparked something within you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. Every comment, every reflection becomes part of a larger awakening, a collective journey to uncover what was once hidden. Remember, the search for hidden truths does not end here. It is only the beginning. The divine masculine and the deeper wisdom of Jesus' teachings are waiting for you to claim them, to bring them into conscious life, and to let them guide you toward courage, clarity, and balance.